Hey, what's up, everybody? Steven here. I am back for another version of the Guilty as Charged film room. Had a lot of fun doing this one. I know, if you've listened to our conversation with Robert Mays, one of the things that we talked about was kind of just the Staley defense and how he has kind of adapted it from his roots, from what he has learned from Vic Fangio. And one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about and wondering about and questioning is what is Brandon Staley going to be doing with the linebacker group? Because frankly, the Los Angeles Rams do not have anybody on their roster that has the kind of capability, the skill set, the talent that Kenneth Murray has, or even Drew Tranquil. To be honest with you, Kaiser White would probably be the best linebacker on the Rams last year and this year. I don't really think that they address it very much. So it's a different room for sure than what Brandon Staley has had. And so something that Robert Mays mentioned was when Vic Fangio was in Chicago, obviously he had Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith was a rookie in 2018. And so first of all, check that conversation out if you haven't already. Robert Mays is such an excellent guy to listen to. He's got such a great diverse background and has such a wealth of knowledge to share. So I was very happy with that interview. Go check that out wherever you get your podcast or on our YouTube channel right here. Secondly, that kind of sparked my interest in kind of studying Vic Fangio a little bit more than just with Brandon Staley last year. So I went back and watched about 5 games of the 2018 Bears defense. I know the 2017 version was a little bit better. At least statistically, that was Khalil Mack's first season when they went to, when they had won the division and all that stuff. But the 2018 version added Roquan Smith. And so I personally feel like Roquan Smith and Kenneth Murray have some similar skill sets. So I wanted to go in and see how Vic Fangio used Smith and Danny Trevathan and kind of get some ideas on how Brandon Staley might use this Chargers current group of linebackers. So that kind of sparked the interest. I'm going to go basically over some things schematically and some other kind of roster issues that, I was able to look at from the Bears standpoint and how the Chargers will be able to use them. And then, I kind of want to continue this and be able to talk about Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray. So I'll do some film rooms on those players coming up. So stay tuned for that one. Before we get started, thank you everyone for the support. Obviously, none of this would be possible without you guys. And it's been so fun interacting with you guys on YouTube and Twitter. We have a giveaway up on our Twitter for some tickets to the Chargers Rams preseason game, the first game in SoFi Stadium. So check that out. The Twitter will be in our description. As always, make sure and hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on. And all those things really help us. All the likes, comments, they really help us grow the channel because that, frankly, is our goal. That's why we're here. So that being said, let's get started with this Bears film. Really interesting, like I said, studying them and studying how Vic Fangio is different from Brandon Staley and just some basic conversations there. But yeah, let's get into it right here. All right, so one of the things that I think is different between Brandon Staley and Vic Fangio, and some of this might be a little bit of personnel, obviously, but Vic was much more willing to play out of the base packages of the defense, the base 3-4, and the nickel. He didn't play a whole lot of dime package in the games that I studied, at least. He kind of preferred to have his 2 linebackers, Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith, on the field pretty much at all times. So he would mix it up a little bit. Sometimes he would have a 5-man front with 1 linebacker. Sometimes he would have the 4-man front with the 2 linebackers, which is what you'll see here. This is the nickel package. So you have Leonard Floyd at the bottom standing up in 2 feet. I wish I had a way to point these guys out a little bit more. I know that's a thing on Huddle, but if you know how I could possibly kind of show and highlight these players as I'm going with these clips, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, so Khalil Mack is up on the top of the line of scrimmage up against the right tackle. He's got his hand in the dirt. And then you have Roquan Smith right here. He's got the white gloves on. And then Danny Trevathan is the linebacker closest to Khalil Mack. So traditionally speaking, when you have 4 wide receivers on the field, this is what the Cardinals currently have here with Sam Bradford as their quarterback. So a little funny trip down memory lane watching Sam Bradford play quarterback again. But Staley has talked about this matching personnel and being able to exploit matchups, right? And so traditionally with the Rams against a team that's going 4 wideouts, Staley would pivot here and go to a dime package, have 6 defensive backs on the field. But because Vic Fangio preferred to have Trevathan and Roquan Smith on the field, he only goes with the nickel. So the origins of this defense do require their linebackers to cover, but it's just a little different, a little more in a traditional sense, because with Gus Bradley's defense, linebackers were responsible for a lot more in the intermediate deep range. The linebackers in this scheme are really mostly responsible for the running backs, the tight ends, and usually in the short area routes. Now, obviously, sometimes a running back that they're responsible for will be running, kind of a go route or a wheel route, or same with a tight end. But traditionally speaking, it's short routes, it's flats, and they almost always have help, which is something that Brandon Staley has talked about. He craves this numbers advantage of having, the ability to have 3 people cover, or there we go, 3 people cover 2 people kind of thing. And with this defense in particular, he made sure to always have a safety over the top, well, generally speaking, with the 2 linebackers, because these 2 players, they weren't great at coverage, but Vic Fangio asked them to do that consistently. So again, that's kind of something different as well. Brandon Staley recognized his linebackers didn't really have the skill set that he wanted, so he was able to play more of a dime defense than Vic Fangio was kind of willing to. So kind of the stricter, more traditional Vic Fangio versus Brandon Staley, who's kind of more of the innovator. He's young, got some energy, and is willing to make those kind of adjustments. So let's get this one started. Again, this is not going to be anything like extensive. Really just kind of showing you guys what to be expected from the linebackers, and I'll include Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd in this as well. But obviously the focus is on Trevathan and Roquan Smith. So here on the first play, you've got David Johnson right there motioning to the one side. I believe that Trevathan is going to be responsible for him. Yeah, so you see Trevathan go right up there, responsible for David Johnson. I really like the way that he attacks that route instead of waiting for David Johnson to come to him. And then Roquan Smith is actually responsible for Larry Fitzgerald here. So, Drew Schwengel kind of talked about this, like, we're going to have to cover. This was Roquan Smith's second game. Hey, congrats, rookie. Go cover Larry Fitzgerald for a couple plays, right? Like, obviously a daunting task, but you'll see as this route concept progresses here, Roquan has help over the top with the safety, and there looks like there's a little miscommunication here, but the slot corner, I believe that's Bryce Callahan, is ready to help as well. So Roquan is responsible for Larry Fitzgerald, but he has help. Danny Trevathan on a little bit of an island with David Johnson here, which happened quite frequently in this game, which just kind of shows you even the dumbest of teams like the Cardinals in this instance could go out and exploit mismatches. Danny Trevathan should not be covering David Johnson, prime David Johnson, pre-injury David Johnson very often, and that's kind of what happens here. So again, apologies because I wanted to show the all 22, and I wish I could highlight these players a little bit more, but you'll see Danny Trevathan up at the top of the defense, right behind Hakeem Hicks. He's responsible for David Johnson, and then Roquan Smith is responsible for the inside slot man, which happens to be Larry Fitzgerald here. But both short routes, Roquan is in a good position to be able to make that tackle, has the athleticism to be able to make that tackle, and it ended up working out okay. All right, so here, again, the Chargers, excuse me. The Bears are in the nickel defense. You have a 4-man front. You got the 2 linebackers right behind them. The nickel Bryce Callahan right now is motioning right behind this edge rusher. That's not Floyd. I don't know who that one is. But you'll see here kind of the same concept here with Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith. Trevathan has the running back, which the Cardinals are going to exploit here. And then you have Roquan Smith and the slot corner here, Bryce Callahan are responsible for Larry Fitzgerald. So Roquan kind of has the role of being a helper here. David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to end up choosing Larry Fitzgerald, and Danny Trevathan's going to end up getting burned by David Johnson for a touchdown. So again, not really a matchup that I personally would have if it were me and I were playing the Cardinals in this instance. You've got 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. If it were me, I would have 6 defensive backs on the field here to make sure that I'm not having a linebacker cover David Johnson. And I think that Brandon Staley would have that same kind of approach. But also at the same time, Drew Tranquill and Kenneth Murray and Kaiser White, I think, are much better in coverage than Danny Trevathan. That's not really a hot take. Trevathan kind of sucks at coverage. So again, like, kind of just confusing why Vic Fangio kind of, leaned into this approach, having Trevathan cover David Johnson one-on-one all game long, because it was all game long, and David Johnson had himself a field day as a receiver. All right, so this game is against the Niners, a little bit better of an opponent, although Nick Mullins was the quarterback this game. I believe Jimmy G was hurt this one game. This is when the Niners went to the Super Bowl that same season. Excuse me. All right, so this one is with the linebackers. I believe you have these 2 guys. One is in the slot up at the top, and then one is right behind the defensive tackle there. So a little bit of a similar kind of similar thing right here. As you can see, the 2 linebackers really are focused on these short routes. In this particular instance, they're essentially dropping back to cover any kind of mesh concepts, any kind of hook concepts, any kind of hitch concepts, but they've got their eyes on the quarterback. So yes, they're in coverage, but it's more of a zone thing than it is, a man coverage kind of thing. They're more being helpers than they are, covering. As you can see up top, you've got man coverage outside with the corner. You've got man coverage with the safety and the slot guy, man coverage with the slot corner and the slot receiver, and then man coverage at the bottom. So you've got the 2 linebackers kind of dropping over the middle, making sure you have no mesh concepts, which the Niners are very famous for, no hook concepts, no hitch concepts. And then you got the safety, I believe Eddie Jackson in the back, kind of doing a cover 1 look. So, if you're playing Madden, this is probably like a cover 1 robber call. I believe that's how Madden has it classified. I haven't played that game in years, so let me know if it's not. But simple but effective strategy for these linebackers here. Doesn't ask them to do a whole lot. And as you can see at the end there, Roquan Smith does kind of come up towards the running back. I believe it was Matt Breida in this instance. Sorry, I went back a little too far there. So you watch Roquan Smith here, and Matt Breida kind of runs a delayed route, and that's where Roquan ends up. And then Danny Trevathan ends up kind of just being in the middle, helping out with his eyes on the quarterback. All right, let's get to the next one here. So this, I believe, is one of the blitz calls that I wanted to bring up. If I'm not mistaken, you've got Trevathan up on the right side, Roquan Smith on the left side of the line of scrimmage of the ball. No, I'm sorry. This is them coverage again. So same kind of thing. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the exact same play. I put in the close version. So this is the same thing. You can see Roquan going after the running back, and then Trevathan dropping back over deep. All right. So this is kind of a nickel defense that Staley likes to do as well. You'll keep the 5-man front. You'll have to go 1 linebacker and then 5 defensive backs. So you've got Bryce Callahan in the slot. You've got the 2 corners, and then you've got the 2 safeties back up top. But you keep those 5 men on the line of scrimmage. You've got Killimack in a 2-point stance, and then Leonard Floyd at the bottom of the line of scrimmage against the tight end. So I wanted to show this one because a lot of people have been kind of talking about Joey Bosa dropping into coverage, Leonard Uchenna and Nwosu dropping into coverage. And Nwosu obviously has done that more often as he used to be an off-ball linebacker. But here you'll see the linebacker, the middle linebacker, inside linebacker, Danny Trevathan, and the outside linebacker / edge, as Brandon Staley calls it, Leonard Floyd, working a tandem. So you've got Matt and Kittle, same side. So those 2 linebackers are responsible for those 2 potential pass catchers. So basically what I have learned from this defense is Leonard Floyd has eyes on the running back. If the running back stays to help block, he gets to rush. If Breida, whoever the back is, goes out, then Floyd is responsible for him. So kind of a flood concept. The pass coverage is flooded to the left here. As you can see, you've got the 3 defensive backs there against the 2 receivers there. And then at the bottom, you're going to have a little bit of the same kind of thing. You'll have the linebacker and the edge rusher responsible for the tight end and the running back, man coverage on the outside, and then the safety over the top kind of helping out wherever he can. So again, same kind of thing. That 2 high safety shell ensures and allows the defense to be able to take some risks because they always have help over the top. Okay, so let's see how Floyd does here in coverage against the running back. He does okay. You know, he's staying right there. Play ends up going to the left side with Danny Trevathan against, I believe it was, yeah. So this ends up being, you know, kind of a mesh, a crossing route concept with George Kittle going up against Danny Trevathan. Essentially, this is a one-on-one matchup. You know, ideally, again, you're not going to want someone like Danny Trevathan to cover George Kittle. Trevathan is very comparable to Denzel Perryman, in my opinion. Hammerhead in the run game, liability in the passing game, and Vic Fangio almost refused to take him off the field. I believe this year he had like 1,100 snaps. So it was just kind of crazy to me watching how much, you know, Trevathan was on the field in coverage duty. But he makes a good play here on George Kittle. Again, Nick Mullins, not Jimmy G. All right, so this one was particularly interesting, this play, because at times these linebackers do have to essentially play man-to-man coverage. Running back motions out of the backfield, out wide, then the linebacker has to go and follow. Again, he will have help, but essentially, you know, he does move into the slot here, I believe, against what's his name? Dante Pettis. In man coverage, essentially. That's Roquan Smith. And he does a decent enough job, and then he makes a good adjustment on the fly. But you see this safety over the top. Safety always has help, or the linebacker always has help with the safety, But just wanted to point that out, you know, because these linebackers, they're not going to be exclusively staying in their spots and dropping back. Sometimes they will have to go play man-to-man coverage against some slot receivers. And thankfully, again, I think I trust Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray a little bit more than Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith in coverage. All right, so here's another play. I tweeted out this picture. This is Khalil Mack in the slot, believe it or not. Lined up against Dante Pettis, and then you've got, you know, this is a base defense, right? And instead of sending an inside linebacker out to the slot, he sends Khalil Mack. So don't freak out when Joey Bosa or Uchenna Nwosu are out in the slot. It will happen from time to time. But I think this play, if I remember correctly, this is, yeah. So, I'm sorry, that was Khalil Mack. That was Leonard Floyd, So Floyd does end up coming as a rusher. You know, the coverage is essentially designed as a disguise. Let the opposing quarterback think that this edge rusher is going to try and cover Dante Pettis or whoever receiver this is. And then he's going to come on a blitz after all. So just a way that we were talking about on our podcast, like the edge rushers, that is, will have to drop back in coverage more often than they did under Gus Bradley. But generally speaking, it's going to be a very simple thing. And sometimes they'll line up in the slot and they'll end up, you know, rushing the passer still. So don't freak out when Joey Bosa's lined up in the slot. I promise you it's not going to be very often. All right, so this is something that I wanted to point out because this is a blitz concept that the Bears ran with Roquan Smith as a blitzer. It wasn't super effective as a blitz. It ends up being an interception. But so Roquan Smith is going to be the linebacker on the top of the screen, Danny Trevathan on the bottom. So what happens here is actually kind of a miss by the 49ers because you've got the linebacker blitzing, and then the other linebacker is supposed to be responsible for this running back. But because George Kittle here is kind of running a crosser, he's going to run right into that linebacker. And so the running back ends up having a free release, essentially, and Nick Mullins misses him. I think this ends up being a touchdown for the Bears. But against a more experienced quarterback, like right here, you should be able to see that the linebackers held up with Kittle and go immediately to the running back, right? Like that's the read. You've got all this traffic up top, all the traffic over the middle, but the running back is wide open. So you would hope that your quarterback, ideally not Nick Mullins in this case. But the other thing I wanted to point out too is that this is an instance where I believe the edge rusher drops into coverage. Yep. So that's Leonard Floyd dropping into coverage, providing some inside help to the slot corner. Again, that same kind of concept, numbers over numbers. And then, it looks like this safety up here on the right side is responsible for George Kittle. So an interesting kind of concept, right? Like you have your 4 rushers here. This one on the end is going to drop back, and one of the linebackers on the other side is going to come on a blitz. So you're going to have 3 rushers coming from the right side and just the one on the left side, which is the defensive tackle. So ideally you get a one-on-one matchup here. It looks like Khalil Mack does get a one-on-one matchup with the right tackle. And again, that's just kind of a way for this defense to flood numbers one way and get some one-on-one matchups. Like, I'm so excited because Joey Bosa is going to be double teamed at a lesser frequency. Wow, really struggle with that sentence structure right there. My bad. It's been a long day for me. But anyways, just wanted to point that kind of thing out. Really cool creative blitz. Allows the edge rusher to drop in a less stressful environment, shall we say. And then you bring the linebacker off the right side. Allows your all-world defensive end to have a one-on-one matchup and ideally cause some havoc. Yeah, see, this ends up being a touchdown, I think. Well, it might have been called back because Pettis was hurt. But, yeah. All right, so this is another blitz concept that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about some run things as run defense things as well. This was weirdly a Nathan Peterman game, so again, kind of some deja vu watching, a defense eat Peterman alive because the Bears scored twice in this game on defense. I believe the first play is one of them. But Roquan Smith, 58, is going to come off a blitz on the left side. So again, same kind of concept here. You're going to have your 4 rushers. This time 99 and Leonard Floyd. And you're going to end up having 5 rushers. And so essentially you're trying to get your outside edge rusher and your interior edge rusher, Hakeem Hicks, a one-on-one matchup, which does end up happening, right? So you've got Roquan Smith coming on the blitz. He's going to go one-on-one against the guard. And then Danny Trevathan on the right side is responsible for the other back. And then the back so it was 2 backs, right? One on each side of Peterman. The one on his right leaks out, which Eddie Jackson, number 39, right here at the bottom of the screen, is responsible for. And then Danny Trevathan is responsible for the other back. So just an interesting blitz concept to point out. You get a one-on-one matchup for Leonard Floyd. Doesn't work out, but that's okay because this ends up being a touchdown. Roquan Smith is going to fly from being a blitzer to this running back and causes a fumble, which Eddie Jackson picks up and runs back for a touchdown. Like, it was amazing watching this defense, you guys, because they had dudes at every single level. Like Khalil Mack, Hakeem Hicks, Roquan Smith, even as a rookie, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller. Their defense was insane. Like, so good on every single level. And they just came up with turnovers in like the weirdest of ways. We talked about, Kaiser White and Nasir Adderley early in the season last year, really feeling like they were close to causing some turnovers and never really came to fruition, unfortunately. But the Bears were so good at this stuff, causing all these turnovers like this. And again, Smith and Murray are very similar athletically. This is the kind of play that you'd love to see from Kenneth Murray, obviously resulting in a defensive touchdown. But starts with the blitz. All right, this blitz is one that I am particularly a fan of. Really kind of a concept that, gets my juices flowing, if you will. So you've got your 4-man front, right? You've got 49, the edge rusher, Leonard Floyd, the edge rusher on the left side. You've got your 2 defensive tackles, and then you've got Roquan Smith on the left-hand side of the screen, Danny Trevathan on the right side of the screen. So Floyd on the left is going to drop back, and he's in charge of this slot area. And then you've got your two defensive tackles here, 97 and 91. They're going to flood to their left. Essentially, they're going to try and occupy multiple blockers. You've got 91 is going to try to take the left guard and the center. 97 is going to try to take the right guard and the right tackle. And they end up doing a wonderful job of it. And Danny Trevathan ends up one-on-one with a running back. And when you're designing these blitzes and calling these blitzes, if you end up with a linebacker like Trevathan or Perryman or Murray on a running back, then you have won. Like, you take that matchup 9 times out of 10. And we saw Murray get his first sack against the Patriots came when he got a matchup with a running back. So that's kind of the goal of these kind of blitzes. And obviously the idea of Kenneth Murray blitzing more and getting more matchups against the running backs is so much fun to think about. So I definitely wanted to point this one out. Trevathan ends up doing a wonderful job, gets a pressure, and causes Peterman to have some stress. And like I said, you've got 91 here taking on essentially 3 blockers by himself. And the right tackle ends up with the one guy. So you get all these one-on-one matchups because your concept is flooding your players one way. And it just causes some confusion, causes some havoc. And you end up getting a positive one-on-one matchup, in this case with Danny Trevathan on the running back. And again, just a really lucky, fortunate bounce that ends up being an interception for the Bears. Like, just kind of crazy watching this defense over and over again just come up with these crazy turnovers. And honestly, I was just a little bit jealous because we hadn't seen that happen for the Chargers really since 2018, the same year that this was happening. So we'll go back here just one more time for you guys so you can see it full speed. Again, flood the defensive ends, defensive tackles, whatever you want to call them, to the left. Trevathan gets a one-on-one matchup, causes a pressure, and then Kyle Fuller and Eddie Jackson, man, just so good. All right, this is another thing that I want to talk about. We're officially in the run defense portion of this breakdown because this is where I want to talk about Hakeem Hicks. Hakeem Hicks was a monster this season. And you'll see on this particular play, he disrupts the timing here essentially of 3 blockers. And that's a huge win for them, a huge win for a defensive tackle, because it allows your linebackers to be free and flow with the ball, especially when you've got Trevathan and Roquan Smith, Murray Tranquil, linebackers of that caliber. If you can have them free flowing to the ball, that's a huge win. That's a huge advantage for your team. And so you'll see Hakeem Hicks right here. He gets just enough of that center where that center can't reach Roquan Smith, number 58. And Roquan Smith is going to end up making this play. You know who else does a fantastic job? Khalil Mack shedding this double team, really kind of making this difficult. But this play gets Roquan Smith to the ball, and it allows him to be free. Like, that is such a huge advantage for linebackers when they don't have to always go up and hit a blocker. If you can be free flowing to the ball, it's a huge advantage. And that's created by the scheme, and it's created by someone like Hakeem Hicks dominating and executing his role to perfection. Now, the Chargers, I don't really have Hakeem Hicks. Like, Linval Joseph, I think, can be kind of that guy. But Hakeem Hicks was just next level dominant as a run defender. And he's going to show up here too. Again, you've got your base front. You can't see him, but Leonard Floyd's off to the left. You got your base 3-4 front. And Hakeem Hicks right here, lined up over the right guard, is going to disrupt the timing of pretty much every single offensive lineman in front of him. And then he's still going to end up being able to make the tackle here. But again, I wanted to point this out because, having this many guys on the line of scrimmage, having 5 defensive players at the line of scrimmage, it gives your linebackers, your inside linebackers, so much more freedom to work. So initially I was pretty skeptical of switching to the 3-4 defense, but I think Staley is going to make it work. And I think these linebackers are going to have huge seasons. Like, no one touches Roquan Smith. Actually, I think that might be Danny Trevathan. No one touches Trevathan until, the running back is like right next to him. So he does a fantastic job taking on Kyle Juszczyk. But look at this defense. You've got Hakeem Hicks throwing linemen around. Same with Eddie Goldman. You've got Trevathan taking on a blocker. You've got Roquan Smith free flowing to the ball again. Kyle Fuller, a great tackling corner, is right there. Like, this defense was crazy. So that's going to do it for this film breakdown, you guys. Hopefully you're able to learn something. It ended up being 30 minutes already, which, just I love talking about football, man. So really excited about these linebackers. I think they're going to have a huge season for them. Obviously very excited about Kenneth Murray, but Drew Tranquil now, like, I was so on board with him as a rookie. Went down to training camp and saw him dominate in practice. Unfortunately did not play last year, essentially. So these linebackers are going to have a lot of fun. And I believe, Daniel Popper kind of pointed out too, like, having great linebackers is going to take some pressure off of the safety room, which is fantastic. But I'm just so excited to see how this defense unfolds. The trio that the Chargers will have kind of over the quartet, really, with Chris Harris, the two linebackers, and Derwin James, all kind of roaming the middle of the field, is going to be really exciting to watch. So again, subscribe to our channel. Let me know what you thought of this breakdown. Again, this is something that I spent a lot of time on recently as I got back from vacation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for those other ones. Have a good one.